This is my Sony A7S III. It's been my go-to camera for everything video related. I remember when the A7S III was released in September 2020, and at the time I was shooting with an A7 III, and I thought I was just gonna have this camera for a year or two. Fast forward a couple years, I still got it. This has a lot of quirks, this has a lot that I like about it, and it's been through thick and thin with me. Yeah, I've had this camera for quite a while now, and I feel like physically it's held up pretty well. There's some average wear spots on the camera, nothing too crazy for how many hours I've put on this camera. The flip screen still works really well. Like, I know some cameras, this flip screen wears out pretty quick. Mine has been doing fantastic. All of the buttons and dials work and nothing has jammed, and I think that's a testament to how well this camera has been built. I live in Alberta, so often I need to take this camera out into the cold and into the snow, and I've had no issues of this freezing or even in the summers of this overheating. I've also taken this out in the rain a couple times, and I haven't dropped it in the snow or dropped it in the water, but the weather sealing on this hasn't failed me yet. I'm very thankful I haven't needed to send this camera in for anything, and I hopefully never will. And I wish I could tell you how many hours that I've put onto this camera, shooting interviews, shooting talking heads, shooting client projects, but I don't think that this camera can tell you how many hours that you've shot in video on it. It wasn't too long ago that it was required to use a cinema camera to get a cinematic looking image, and it's really nice that in the past few years you can use a smaller hybrid camera and get a very similar look. I learned to shoot photos way before I learned to shoot video, and this camera feels like a photo camera. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it feels very comfortable in my hand. When I'm shooting videos on it, it's actually mostly on a tripod or a gimbal, and it's not often that I'm holding it like this, but it fits really great on almost any tripod, and even on smaller gimbals like my what is that gimbal called that I have? Whatever the mini Ronin is, that's the one I have, and this camera balances on it along with all my lenses. In terms of setting this camera up internally to be the best camera that it can be, I set this thing up and customized it right at the beginning of when I got it, and I really haven't touched much since. It's really nice to just have a product that you set up and you don't have to touch, and you can worry more about the creative vision that you have versus the gear and the technicalities that could get in the way. The menu system on this camera is not the strongest. It's a lot harder to hand this camera to somebody who's been using a Canon camera or a Lumix camera. These menus are going to be kind of confusing to them. These menus are better than the A7 III's and the cameras previous to this, and with the new update, the menus are even better. I still think they have a long way to go. So the way I use this camera is it's my main video camera and it's my backup photo camera. I had a couple gripes with the A7 III. In terms of video stuff, the A7 III had a screen that only flipped up or down, and more importantly, it only shot in 8-bit color, which is really unfortunate. The A7S III fixed those problems with me. This screen is much better, and this camera shoots in 10-bit, which basically every camera does now, but at the time, this was fantastic for Sony. In terms of photo stuff, this camera handles very similarly to the camera I'm shooting this on right now, my A7 IV, which is my main photo camera. The bodies are almost identical. Sometimes I pick them up and I can't tell the difference between them. Both screens rotate the way that I want them to, but I try not to shoot my main photo stuff using the A7S III. It's a great backup camera, but I don't want to rely on it, and that's for a couple of reasons. First off, the resolution when you're shooting photos on the A7S III isn't quite as high as the A7 IV. It's passable. I shoot a lot of my YouTube thumbnails and projects just for personal stuff on the A7S III. But I've also encountered some problems when I'm shooting with fluorescent lights or concerts and shows. I get banding across my images because there's actually no physical shutter in this camera. But by knowing that, I can just work around that and use the A7 IV or a different camera when I'm shooting in those situations. Since this camera was released 5 years ago, there is a bunch of different video focused cameras that Sony has released since then. And I think if I had to rebuy, I might get some of those if the timing were a little bit different. The three cameras that have caught my eye are the FX3, the A7C II, and the ZVE1. If I'm not mistaken, all of those cameras are the A7S III in a different body type, and if not, a better sensor inside them. What interests me about the A7C II and the ZVE1 is the size of the physical body of the camera. They're a little bit smaller than the FX3 and the A7C II, And I've been doing more filming myself in the past few years, and a smaller camera that's a little bit more portable feels more useful and more practical to me. What's holding me back from getting those cameras is that there's no D-pad on those cameras. I really like this for shooting photos. And this camera still works awesome. It's essentially the exact same camera, and I don't need those cameras to shoot what I'm shooting. Maybe in the next few years, I'll switch to one of those cameras, but right now, by having this camera, it's kind of hard to justify that, especially when the image quality is pretty much the same and the insides of all of these cameras are very, very similar. I try not to get stuck in the trap of looking for updates for my cameras all the time, because a lot of times it's really minor updates that don't affect my day-to-day performance. However, an update for the A7S III came out about a year ago, and this has completely changed how I use this camera. the app has two main updates that I use on a day-to-day basis. The first one is that you can upload your monitoring LUTs when you're shooting in S-Log3, and this is super nice because everybody shoots their footage differently, and so the way I shoot it is the way that I can monitor it when I'm shooting my videos. The other update that excites me more is that now you can use the Monitor Control app from your phone to monitor what you're seeing on your camera. In the past, the app connections between a phone and a camera haven't been so great, but the connection between the phone and the camera has been awesome. And if you're finding you have issues with it, you can also attach a USB-C cable between the two, and it's even stronger. With this update, you can monitor what you're seeing on your camera on your phone. This also works on an iPad or an iPad mini, and I would imagine with Android devices as well. This helps because then I don't have to rely on this tiny little screen on the back of my camera. I can also monitor remotely, turn it towards myself, walk across the room to see what I'm shooting. But I also have control over what I'm shooting, and I can change focus. I can change pretty much all of the settings on the camera remotely. This is awesome. And hold on. This little piece right here has made this whole process so much easier and more enjoyable. So the way that this works is that you attach this little thing into the top on your hot shoe mount, and then you use the MagSafe piece on here, and you can attach your phone and it becomes your monitor. And just like that, you've got a massive touchscreen monitor for your camera. That's wild. I don't know why more people aren't using this. This may be controversial, but Sony has some of the best lens selections for their cameras. Not only do they almost have every single focal length covered with a prime and with a zoom, but they also let third-party lens manufacturers tap into their lens mount, and you can use those camera lenses as well. I'm talking about Tamron, Sigma, Siru, and all of those guys. Because I've been shooting with Sony for quite a while now, there is so many lens options, and I've acquired my own collection of lenses. Also, a lot of my friends shoot with Sony, so it's really easy to shoot with them and switch lenses or borrow each other's lenses. Despite having a selection of endless lenses, the lens that I find I use the most on the A7S III is the 17-28 2.8 from Tamron. Lately, I've been finding that I film myself a lot with the A7S III, and so I need a wide lens, and this has done a great job. It's relatively small for its size, and I like that it has an internal zoom, and so it's tougher to get dust or gunk inside the lens. And it's a lot cheaper and lighter than the Sony version. But if I need any other type of focal length, Sony has done such a great job of creating all kinds of focal lengths for all kinds of different people for all different types of styles. On a side note, I've actually got rid of most of my really fast prime lenses and swapped them out for the 1.8 or the 2.8 versions. I found that I'm not shooting as much commercial work in the past little bit. However, if I need these lenses, my friends are awesome and they're happy to lend them to me. And in exchange, I have much smaller, much lighter, and much cheaper lenses, and I'm still happy with the image quality that I get from these. Because of the ergonomics of this camera, I believe that it's actually informed the way that I shoot using it. I kind of refuse to add a cage and rig this out and add a big battery on the back and a top handle and all of that stuff to make this camera look like a big camera rig. I'm not entirely sure why I do that. I do enjoy small cameras. Maybe that's why I really enjoy using my iPhone for a lot of what I shoot with. But I know that I could get some more really cool camera movements if I rig this thing out more, and probably some extended battery life because of the V-mount battery. But I find that I treat this camera like a photo camera that also shoots video. I pair this camera with the camera that I'm shooting this on right now, the A7 IV, and the image quality looks very similar, and they both take photos very similarly. The menus are the same. They work really well together. So after using this camera for 5 years and knowing what I know about this camera, would I purchase this again in the year 2025? Well, there's a lot more camera brands and specific cameras to choose from nowadays. There's Canon, there's Fuji, there's Lumix, and that's kind of tough to choose between. I mean, if I had to stay in the Sony ecosystem, doing what I'm currently doing right now, I would probably choose the A7Siii II. It's essentially the same camera on the inside, but it's smaller. That being said, I'm quite thankful that I've had this combo of the A7 IV and the A7S III because it's made my workflow and my shooting experience really seamless. And I don't know if that would be the case if I had the A7Siii II. For the time, I think I made the best decision for myself that I could, and I'm not unhappy with what I chose. Would I rebuy this camera in 2025? I think there might be some better, cheaper options out there right now. Now, if I were to sell this camera today in late 2025, I actually don't know if this would hold its value. I can't imagine that it's lost much of its value, but I think I've got a lot more out of it than I've put into it. Now, would I recommend this camera for you in 2025? Well, it really depends what it is you're shooting. If you're shooting hybrid photo and video and you need two cameras, I really enjoy this combo of the A7 IV and the A7S III. If you're shooting primarily photo, I would not recommend this camera. I would pick a different photo-centric camera. And if you're shooting primarily video, yeah, maybe the FX3 or whatever its predecessor will be. Or is it successor? Whatever camera comes out after the FX3, or maybe a smaller content creator focused camera like the A7C II or the ZV-E1. If you are looking for a camera, I would recommend borrowing one from a friend, going to a camera store and renting one for a week. Even if it costs you money to do so, it's going to save you a lot of time and grief and second guessing in the long run. Try a couple different cameras out. But I can tell you, I've been very happy with my experience with Sony over these past few years. Thank you for letting me ramble. I hope this has helped someone. My name's Davey. Thanks for letting me spill the gravy, and we'll see you in the next video.